Hi, everyone. Welcome to the How Round Is Your Roti podcast. This is a podcast that delves into topics and issues specifically through the lens of South Asian women. Today, I have with me Raki Joshi, who is the founder of Maternal Matriarch, a maternal wellbeing platform and app focused on motherhood, identity, emotional regulation, and the invisible emotional load many women carry. Yeah, I hear that one. In this space, mothers can find mentorship, community, and curated tools for a life lived with purpose. So, hi, Raki. Thank you for joining me.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so, this is a big topic today, motherhood, which is very varied. And obviously, everyone has a different experience. You and I are both mothers, and we've chatted before about the ups and downs of being a mother and also building a business at the same time, which has its own challenges. So, to start with, could you tell me a little bit about your motherhood journey?
I've got three kids, all under 12. And it my first baby was textbook. Like he went to sleep when he was supposed to, woke up when he was supposed to, had meal times. It was literally like textbook. And then came the second one, which was a complete opposite. So it kind of really knocked me for six. And I think I had such a you want to be a mom who looks like she's coping, right? And I think I went through that whole struggle with the second. With my second, she was colic. So between 6 and 11 every night, we would get that high pitched screaming. And literally, it would be a case of me passing baby on to my husband passing it to my mom passing it back to me. And that's how we navigated probably the first 6 months of her life in the evenings. So you can imagine, like, we had sleep deprivation majorly. A lot of things were just it was difficult. I don't think I even left the house for the first 6 months because it was just constant, feeding and then her crying, and then because she's crying so much she wants feeding again, and it was that vicious cycle. So because of all of that, I think it was just an accumulation of things. I went through postnatal depression, and I was told by the health visitor when they come to check you that we know you've got it, but you're not that far gone. So put baby in pushchair, go for a walk, even if she's crying, get yourself out there. It's just a phase, it'll pass. And that got me thinking, like, surely, like, you don't want the moms to get to a certain stage even before they receive the help, nip it in the bud, so that they don't need to suffer. And this kind of just led to one thing to another. I started blogging a little bit. Um, about it was more a vent, like when baby was feeding, it was venting on a blog. And I think it just resonated with a lot of people, so it built up a bit of momentum. And then when the 6 months had passed and I started feeling a bit myself again, getting a bit more sleep, um, I was like, surely people need to know that doctors and GPs are not the only way. Because I think when I was having conversations around that sort of time, that's what everyone was saying, like, go to your GP, get the help. But if your own health visitors are saying, it'll pass, just keep going, it's surely there's some sort of disconnect. So I started reaching out on social media to people, and basically just came up with the idea of, let's just do a Zoom call. Let's just educate. There's a lot out there that you can tap into. You probably just need to go further afield. And then so it became a 12-week podcast, with the sole purpose of just basically letting people know there are people out there that know what they're talking about. Because as moms, we know everyone's got an opinion. Not all of it's accurate, not all of it's reliable. So the whole purpose was try and get those people that are experts in their field to come on and talk about issues we should be talking about, but we don't. So started doing that. And then, yeah, it just organically grew. And then I had 3 years later, had my third. And again, it was whirlwind again because it's very busy, two kids and a third, and you're trying to do all this other stuff. And I think, again, with her, went through the postnatal depression again, it creeped back in, but this time I wasn't going to let it get to me. So this time I went out and physically sought help. And I went to something called Mums in Mind, who are there to basically talk it out with you. And I think it was there that I had the realization that a lot of the pressures that I was going through were self-inflicted. I wanted to seem like I was the mom that copes. I wanted to know that I've got everything under control, that I'm present, because obviously that's a big thing, mom guilt. You want to be present for the other two, even though you're absolutely, like, shattered. And then, yeah, it just, I was able to get over whatever I was feeling and try and move on and get the help that I need. So yeah, it just kind of grew. And then since it's been Maternal Matriarch, it's just, with the sole purpose of trying to get the word out there that, come on, there's so much out there with social media now. You don't need to just suffer in silence. And the village that you're probably thinking is your village may not be. You may need to look further afield.
Definitely. Thank you for that. And thank you for being so honest about your experience, because I think even within our culture, it's really hard to say sometimes that we have not got it all together, that we're not coping, and to admit it. And you mentioned that need there to appear as if we've got it all held together. And I've noticed in some of your posts as well on Instagram, you've spoken about high functioning motherhood. I've definitely felt like that at times. Like, I've got to have the tidy house. I've got to be cooking meals. I've got to be looking after my kids. And then me looking okay, even if I feel like shit, just put that lippy on and go out. And in actual, like, it doesn't always help us. So what do you tell people about high functioning motherhood and how we can maybe get over it and just, maybe be more honest with ourselves and with the people around us?
I think, first of all, high functioning motherhood is it's when you look like you're capable, you look like you've got everything together, you look like you're able to just function through life effortlessly. But behind the scenes, you've actually spread yourself really thin, or you're trying to keep up with the expectations, fully knowing that you're not able to do so, but you're constantly putting on a front. Again, it's to make yourself look and feel like you are capable. We all know you are as a mom, like, to be able to hold and nurture a baby in the womb for 9 months, then to go through childbirth and then to raise a child. It takes a lot. And if you don't give yourself the validation that you are enough through that, I think it can be so detrimental because you're constantly looking for external validation. So, you know, and also the other side of it is that we're looking at today's modern society. It's very different from how our parents and grandparents raised. So, like, you will often hear as moms that, oh, we did it like this, or, it worked for us. But now life is very different. We're a lot more isolated now. Back in the day, they had help, they had the village, if you like. Um, but the meaning of that village has now changed. And I think people are still trying to hold on to that village and feel like they're suffering because they're holding it was made for a world that we no longer have. So I think we've got to start accepting that and accepting the fact that our village will look different. Um, and to embrace it, because that's the main kind of objective of it. You're not gonna be able to create systems for yourself that work if you're constantly holding on to the past. And a lot of this is to do with generational conditioning. You've been taught this is what women should do, this is what moms should look like. But it's not always the case. And why are we putting that on ourselves now in
Yeah.
today's day and age?
It's a lot of extra pressure. And I think sometimes the people that you're closest to, as well meaning as they are, like you said, everybody's got an opinion. Everyone's telling you, don't hold the baby that way, do this. Oh, by this many months, they should be walking, crawling, eating,
Exactly.
eating. And it's like everything, everyone's got an opinion. And I think sometimes it also takes away from our instincts and our intuition of what we want to do. I remember with my firstborn, I lived in a joint family and I started baby-led weaning, which is when you give them solid food
Yeah,
straight. You
I did
don't
the same. Yeah.
my in-laws, they had to walk out the kitchen. They couldn't bear to watch me do that, and I was like, "No, I've, like, decided this is what I'm gonna do." Like, read about it, researched it. I went to the children's centers and they did demonstrations there, and they let the baby eat the food. So I felt like, okay, I felt comfortable with this, but they didn't. And that's, sometimes you're gonna have that difference of opinion with the people around you, and you often, I'd say, need to lean into your own intuition or try and put those boundaries in place where you can still do what you want and respectfully say, okay, but you've also had your turn and this is my turn and I'm
My
going to do
turn.
what
Yeah.
I want to do with my kids.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think in the South Asian culture, it is just everyone's got something to say and that can
Even
be,
people who don't have kids have an opinion. So I think a lot of the time you just got to take it with a pinch of salt and be like, this is my kids. I'm going to raise them to the best of my ability. And if people around me aren't agreeing with it, that's them. That's not nothing to do with me or my worth or how I should be raising my kids. And I think once you get over that people pleasing, I think life changes a lot because then you start doing things that actually work for you and your family as opposed to what works for everyone else. Um, and you feel more grounded. You feel like you're in your own space. You know exactly what you're doing, and you start believing in yourself, which is like the biggest thing in all of this. It's no longer about what people think. It's kind of what you think and how you're gonna cope with day to day. So it's, yeah, people pleasing, I think, goes out the window when you become a mother. I think for a lot of moms, I think we do it for a bit and then we realize that this is not working. And that's when, we probably get like coined the rebellious mom, that which I think a lot of South Asian moms do get branded as, that we are like, we're rebellious and we do what we want, but it's for the best.
I think every generation will probably say from the one before, "Oh, you've changed. You're doing things differently. This isn't what I was taught." I was like, yeah. Some part I just say it's natural. Every generation is going to change and is going to put their own stamp on things, do things differently.
100%.
You mentioned the postnatal depression there, and I'm really surprised. I'm really shocked actually that that was the response from your health visitor
Mhm.
because we hear a lot, especially in the news recently, about maternity services and also the discrimination that goes on in maternity services. And I put a post out on LinkedIn a few weeks ago about my experience just being in hospital. And I really felt like there was some discrimination that went on there. I was like trying to get help from the midwives. My little one was just like constantly crying, not sleep. And this was my second child as well. So I sort of knew different sides. I was a bit more experienced and they just looked at me and said, well, that's what babies do and sent me away. And so when you're asking for help or people want to see help, I think there's a barrier there. And sometimes I put it down to discrimination.
I think one of the things also is when it comes to that kind of things, I think a lot of like the NHS, it's very about, it's not preventative. It's kind of, let's wait till you get somewhere, then give you help. Whereas what I'm trying to do through maternal matriarch is trying to do preventative support. So it's kind of giving you the tools before you even get to that stage. So when you get to that stage, you're able to lead from it better. So I think when you look around, a lot of these things to do with like well-being, mental health, it's all very much like you've got to wait until you've reached there and then let's see what we can do about you. Whereas I think if we changed it, I think it would save moms a lot of hassle, a lot of heartache, um, and just make us better as society, because I think we're always waiting for something to happen before we even think about things. So yeah, that's a big part of it.
Would you say then that, in order to have that preventative, not that everyone gets postnatal depression, then we should be more aware of it.
Well, one of the things I always say this, when we go to an antenatal class, why is it that they only talk about the baby? Like if your baby cries like this is what they want. This is how to bath the baby. This is how to change a nappy. They don't actually sit down and tell you when you go through sleep deprivation, what do you do? Or if you're thinking you're going to get the support from family and friends, once you've had baby, that support is not there, or it's not in a way that's purposeful for you. What do you do? Where do you go? And I think these are like the kind of fundamental things that we as mums need to know. So when we become mothers, we're able to go in with it with our eyes open. Not everything's a complete shock. Um, because the reality is, if you're going to go through things not knowing, kind of like the fear of the unknown, when you actually get there, then you're kind of scrambling to try and find out, okay, right, I feel really upset now because I thought so and so is going to be helping me, but they're not. And that just adds to it all. Whereas if we knew from beforehand that, okay, if this doesn't work, this is what you do, or this is where you go, these are the support that you can receive, little things like that, it makes such a difference. But I don't feel it's like that.
Yeah, it's definitely scattered. And I suppose has such a unique journey as well through that motherhood. Labours can be so different. Well, it's hard to know what is going to happen to you afterwards or through that process. But it would be helpful to have the signposting. It would be helpful to say, sometimes you can't always rely on your GP, your health
Yeah,
visit
yeah.
for the best advice. So instead having someone independent. And a lot of people are turning to social media and getting advice from there, which again, it's not always the best thing because you
Not
don't know.
always reliable, is it?
Well, no. So how does maternal matriarch stand out? How does it do things differently?
So what I've been doing for the last 2.5 years, I've been doing in-person events. And it's basically to find a way to get through to moms, to get the meaning across of what I'm trying to achieve. So each event that I have done has been very different. One's been like an expo, one's been a retreat, one's been where you sit down and you do workshops. You name it, I've probably tried it in the last 2.5 years. And one of the reasons for that is because I understand, I've got lived in experience and I understand that every mom is different. So what works for some moms may not work for another. There's always time constraints. No mom's going to have endless amount of time. And it just kind of just encouraging them to come out and speak to people. So a lot of the things that I do is encouraging moms to understand there is so much out there in the community. it's just a case of knowing where to look. And hopefully through my events, people have seen there's a wide range of services out there in the community. But what actually happened this year is, so I knew that mums get a lot out of my events that I do. But then they go back to their life and life starts lifing again and you get sucked back in and you're not always able to do the things you're supposed to be doing, right? It's happened to me even now with 3 kids and doing what I do. There are days where I'm thinking, okay, I'm just getting back into how it was. So I'm trying to disrupt that. So I've actually created an app, which is about emotional regulation. It helps with nervous system regulation as well. But it's designed to fit into the cracks of your life. So instead of you having to take an hour out to listen to a podcast to try and get some information from it, these are audio drops that happen literally 3 minutes. So in under 3 minutes, you're able to reset, um, overwhelm, your stress, anything like that that you're feeling, and you're able to ground yourself. So you're able to lead from a more grounded space. And that in itself, I think, is a big thing, because I don't want to pass on this message that you need to fix something. If you look at anything when it comes to well-being at the moment, even some of the coaches, it's always about transformations. It's always about, fix yourself and then you'll be someone else. You'll be better off. But that again is saying to moms that there's something wrong with you, something to fix. Whereas in reality, you've got to just realize who you are before the world told you who you are. Then that way you're able to lead from a place where it's your own power, rather than having to, you know, constantly be looking externally for that validation. Am I enough? Have I had enough transformation? Am I able to do the X, Y, and Z? So like the running theme throughout everything I'm trying to do is trying to get women to understand you need to honor the woman that you are beyond the roles that you're playing. Motherhood is a role. Being a wife is a role. Being a sister is a role. Don't confuse it, because I think when you confuse that, people start taking it as motherhood is my identity. And
Yeah.
that's where you lose a lot of the autonomy that you're used to as a woman. And that's where the disconnect is, because then you're constantly at the mercy of other people, whether it's your children, whether it's like family life. Um, Whereas if you separate the two, you understand that as a woman, you've got needs and those needs should be met. And I think people around you need to start understanding as well that you're a woman first. So the woman comes first and then everyone else will be looked after, because the woman is more than capable to do so.
Yeah, I really resonate with that. That is probably the crux of what I hope women get from this conversation today, because I can definitely identify with it. There were times when I think after motherhood, it's like, that's it, that's who I am. And you associate so much with it. And I've been through times where I felt like my whole identity's changed. And it does change, right, as we go through life. But getting back to who you are as a person, understanding your needs, your desires, the fun that you want in life. There comes a stage when the kids grow up and you might have a bit more time for yourself. And I think at some points, even I've been like, oh, what do I do now? I don't know how to
Yeah.
relax, I don't know how to be myself. And it's that you have to get back to, because without that, where's the joy? Where's that sense of purpose and fulfillment that you get just from being you, not from the people you serve, or, the other things that we have to do in
Yeah.
life, responsibilities?
But it's also the identity thing. If you're constantly like, you think, look at motherhood, you become a mom to a newborn, your identity is a certain, you look at yourself certainly. Then when your children go into school, your identity's changed. And then when your children are in uni and they don't need you as much, your identity changes again. Then when your children get married and you've completely been able to get the space you need, then your identity changes again. So at each point, if you're constantly thinking, this is my role, how is that affecting you? And it's probably one of the reasons, maybe it might sound a bit controversial, but it's probably one of the reasons that a lot of people have issues with mother-in-laws and things like that, because they're constantly thinking that their identity is being a mother. So when the child doesn't need you anymore,
Yeah.
you struggle to accept that, and you struggle to kind of embrace the fact that your child's moved on. They've got their own life now. And it's like, even my mom, like I talk to her now, she's in her 60s. And now my mom, like we don't need my mom as much for things. We kind of get on with things. And she was just telling me the other day that, it's now I'm having to find out what I like at this age, because it's always been about family and kids and day-to-day things. So it's nice to see my mom now looking at that as well. But it just shows how much identity plays a part in the way we think, the way we act, the way we value ourselves, um, and how much worth we think we're having. So yeah, it's a big part.
Definitely. And I think that is, if I speak to my mom and how my grandmothers were looking at them, the family was everything. And we talk about they embodied that identity that this is it, this is my role, this is my family. And like you said, when things change, then they've got that gap and they're not sure what else to do. I recognize it, in some women in my life where they've got to find themselves again. They've got to find things that make them happy, that is aside from their children. I think maybe that's how generations are changing. And for myself and for, I suppose, the other school moms and other parents that I meet now, we're getting much better at finding things outside of our children, outside of the home, making connections, meeting people, having hobbies and other things that fulfill us because it's really important. But I think maybe, you'll know as well, in South Asian culture, there's still this big emphasis on motherhood and the roles and everything goes to the children. It's like you dedicate your life to your children and that's the standard. That's the gold standard. So when you don't do it, you get judged for it.
Yeah. Or if your kids don't do what they're supposed to, you get judged for it as a parent. That they forget the fact that your children you can tell your children what to do, but them doing it or not is a different thing. We can't be held responsible for that. Um, but yeah, I think there's a lot of learning and education that's needed, which hopefully through maternal matriarch we're able to get that message across.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, also, I mentioned before that you're a mother with a business, as am I. And I'm wondering, like, with three kids and then developing this platform and this app, what does that look like in your daily life? Like, how do you manage that
I
and
get this
still
I
find
get this
yourself?
question a lot. I get this question a lot. And the reality is that I've learned to have grace for myself. Maternal matriarch hasn't been an overnight thing. It's been a slow process. And I've come to terms with that my life isn't I live in windows. So what happens is I have to block out time specifically for things. So we have another business as well. So I'm there in the morning until about 11, 12. And then I'll be in mom mode until the kids go bed. So because I want it, there's no point in me having a maternal matriarch brand, which is to do with moms, if I myself am not being present as a mom. So I want to practice what I preach. So between the times of like 11 till when the kids go bed, it's all about the kids. So I'm making sure everything's done. And then once the kids go to sleep and everyone else is like, got what they need, then I sit with maternal matriarch and I do what I need to do for that. Um, is it difficult? Yes. It takes a lot to kind of keep going because I think the motivation definitely gets tested. Um, but this is something I really, really want. It's where my sanity is because that's my little piece of me. So, people talk about self care. For me, this is my self care because I'm able to find my purpose. I'm able to do something that is making me feel like I'm actually making an impact, making a difference. And it shows me what my worth is because now my thinking has changed. So now I know that the role is separate. I've understood that I'm able to give my time to these roles and still have time for myself. So it's taken me 4 years, good 4 years to build this to where it is right now, but it's been worth it. It's been worth
Yeah.
it.
I love that. And it's a learning journey throughout it, isn't it? It's similar to you. I built my business around my kids. And like when you said living in windows, I'm like, I live from like half term to half term to some holidays. And it's like I can really work on my business during term time.
Yeah.
And then things slow down and it gets really hard. And I think that consistency in business can be really tricky as well when you're working around the kids. But then I chose to have a business because I wanted to be there for my kids. So as soon as I like go for pickup, then that's it. They've got me for that whole evening. And that's just the way I chose to live my life and how I want to be there for my kids. And lots of women make different choices. And I just say, look at your own situation. Some mothers I know want to work full time. And I think that's brilliant. If you can do it, if you can fit it in and you can still, have that quality time for your kids when you can give it to them, then amazing. It's not for everyone. I know that women, my background was in banking, that did give up their corporate jobs because they couldn't do everything. And some jobs are just not flexible enough to allow for school pickup. I meet some women now at pickup and they're fretting about, oh, I've got a call. I need to get back. Oh, they don't know. My boss doesn't know that I do the school pickup. And I feel like I really feel for them, and I get really angry at the companies, to be honest. I say,
There
"You
should
know
be more
you
support.
employed
There should
a
be.
mother, a
There should be more support.
parent even, it could
Yeah.
be man or woman, it does not matter. A parent should have that flexibility as long as you're doing the work and you can fit in the time around it, but
But I
it's
think also with that, I think as women, we've got to understand that this thing about wanting to have it all,
mm,
we hear about it a lot, but it comes at a cost. And you have to, if you're willing to have that cost and to take it on, then good for you. It should be all about choice. But if you want to have it all and not have the consequences that come with it, I think that's where the issue is. Like for myself, I'm quite clear that there are going to be times that I am going to have to put things aside or do things a little bit later in the day to be able to go and pick my kids up every day and be there for the pickup. It's the same with this. How long have we been talking about this? But to schedule it in, we've had to work it out because otherwise it's pointless. Pointless trying to run yourself to the ground, trying to achieve and do everything. But the other side of it is that we're constantly told on social media that we need to have it all. We need, we can have it all. But I think it's coming to the realization that yes, you can have it all, but at what cost? And are you all right with that? So that
yeah, exactly. There are some, businesses on social media, and it's like, "Oh, I've, got 100K months or 100K years and blah, 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 blah," and they've grown really quickly. I just think, well, your situation is obviously going to be very different. You've put your investment into very different places. Whereas I'm okay that I have a really slow growing business, but it works for me, and I'll do more as my kids are getting older and I have a bit more time and they can be left alone for a little bit longer. Then move time around into the places
yeah.
that I feel are important. And
Plus, you
that
don't know what kind of support that person has. So they may not be telling. They may tell you they've had 100K months, but then at the end of the day, how much support have they got for them to be able to do that? And I think as on social media, I always talk about this like everyone just shows you the best parts of life. No one will tell you what it actually took to get there. So, you have to kind of understand that and take a step back and be like, okay, it's good to have that, but what are my trade-offs for that?
So, if there was a message that you would like to give to mothers now, I mean, we've spoken about the identity piece and valuing yourself and seeking help, but is there anything else that you feel is important to let mothers know in this day and age for how
I
we're
think it's
living
just be
now?
kind to yourself. I think there's so much out there telling you that you need to change and you don't. You don't need to change. You be yourself and you understand the woman that you are because that's what your children need. Ultimately, that they don't care whether you look prim and proper every day or the house is clean every day. But what they do care about is that you're there when they need you and you're able to be fully present. So I think just honor the woman that you are beyond the roles that you play, and everything else will get into place. I promise you. You've just got to be kind to yourself, be patient, and see reality. It's nice to have everything, but is it really necessary?
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you there, Aki. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's been such a pleasure speaking to you. And I know we could probably go on for a lot longer, but I do try and keep these podcasts to about half an hour just because I know, like moms, like busy women everywhere, sometimes we just want like a little hit, something to listen to, something to relate to, and to open the doors for a conversation. So thank you for taking the time out
Thank you.
today.